Welcome to another episode of SportsVibe. I'm Arnav Sarkar here with Jitesh Ramakrishnan. Another busy week in sports as always. We're going to be talking some NBA, NHL, some MLB as spring trainings, been underway now. And we'll wrap it up with some college basketball. I feel like that's something we haven't really touched on yet in this podcast. We kind of started way back with NBA and NHL as the playoffs are kind of in full swing, kind of in the middle around May. And so it's been almost a year. It's been a fun journey. I've really enjoyed doing this. I hope we can, obviously we're going to continue to do it. And, but yeah, coming full circle. I mean, we're back to kind of the NBA and NHL kind of taking center stage here. Baseball's not too far away, about a month from opening day. Spring training is already underway. Yeah, so that's a good sign. Spring is approaching, and of course,
I'll tell you what's not a good sign. Nike and Fanatics just ruining the MLB jerseys.
oh yeah, those are
I,
absolutely whack. Yeah.
I mean, first of all, you remember last year when we used to be able to see this thing on the back of a jersey, this thing called the player's last name. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. We used to be able to see it very, very broadly. So even if you had horrible vision, you'd at least still be able to make out the name, Trout on the back of a jersey. Now the jer- now the last name is shrunk, the jersey number is shrunk, and the quality of the uniform has tremendously downgraded. Like, and did you see the thing that came out a few days ago? The pants were see through. Are you
Yeah,
kidding me?
I saw.
And it
Oh
should,
my god.
and this should be the first time. It should be noted that this is not the first time Fanatics has ruined a sports jersey. See hockey this past season. Especially when it comes to fans, fans ordering jerseys, misspelled names, even wrong numbers for players, and the material just sucks. And then the MLB decides to say copy paste. Like,
Yeah.
why? Why? And
Yeah.
you, and I don't know if you saw the message Jason Hayward gave about his endorsement of the jersey. I mean, Jason, we were able to see it behind the camera that you were clearly held hostage and forced against your will to make that statement. You know as well as I do, you didn't. You were basically forced to say that because you're basically endorsed by Nike. At least I think he's endorsed by Nike. But I don't get. And if there's one good thing for baseball, it's that Rob Manfred is retiring in 5 years. That's a one good thing for baseball. It's a shame that it
Right.
has to be 5 years from now, but hey, progress is progress.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. No, I hate that. It's like you can't really make out. It's harder to see the names. They've taken away like the color and they made the size smaller. Like it,
Yeah,
you
you're
want to be
gonna
able to
need.
see all the players' names. Like that's
Yeah,
standard stuff. Like what are we doing here?
you're gonna need a telescope to see Otani's name on the back of his jersey now. Like, come on.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, in other news, Shohei has been taking batting reps, so that's at least good because considering that he's not going to pitch all this season, which sucks. At least we'll be able to get an idea of how well he'll be able to hit post surgery. Normally, a Tommy John surgery when it comes to batting, I mean, of course, there will be a profound effect on the elbow and the technique and the form and everything you're using, but it shouldn't have too much of an impact on a player's success. I mean, you saw Bryce Harper had his Tommy John surgery after the 2022 World Series. Of course, he had a delayed return in Philadelphia, but he still came back. He was still mashing the ball pretty well. He still had pretty good contact, pretty good form, pretty good technique. So, and that's Bryce Harper. So you can imagine what Otani's going to do. So I wouldn't worry too far from that. And even though this is spring training, Juan Soto's already hit his first home run with the Yankees. But
Hmm.
of course, and other news, Cody Bellinger, another Scott Boras, yep, yeah, another Scott Boras client, signed a 3-year deal $80 million going back to Chicago. The Cubs, I should specify. Cody Bellinger had a really good rebounding season last year, especially over the last couple of years where he didn't look like the same old Cody Bellinger with the LA Dodgers. Of course, Cody Bellinger is perhaps best known for his 2019 season. I don't know if you remember the MVP race, Yelly versus Belly. because Bellinger versus Christian Yelich.
Right.
That was an amazing battle between those two guys. And we really thought they were going to take over the league from there. Unfortunately, Yelich has been marred with injuries, and Bellinger just regressed. But coming back from a season last year after he was on a 1-year deal with Chicago, now he's back. Now he's back for another 3 years in Chicago. I like to see him have the same success. It's a little easier to root for him now that he's now with the LA Dodgers. That's just my 2 cents. But in other news, Jordan Montgomery still hasn't been signed yet, and neither is Blake Snell, which I still don't know. I still don't understand how that's possible. They're 2 of the best left-handed starters in the league. They both got nasty stuff. They have valuable playoff experience. They know what it's like to go deep. They know what it's like to be managed well. So, what gives? That's something I don't understand. But when it comes to off seasons, baseball has always been one of the slowest and one of the weirdest off seasons amongst when compared to basketball, when compared to hockey, when compared to football. Like, notice how football is generally like the fastest, like in terms of off season, like free agency moves and all that, because everyone gets signed within the first 20 seconds of free agency.
Right. Yeah.
The NHL, like, it takes time to develop. I mean, Vladimir Tarasenko is one of the top wingers in the NHL, and it took him until, if I remember, it took him a while before he signed with the Ottawa Senators, and this was after he had a pretty good campaign of getting traded to the Rangers last season. Of course, Patrick Kane. Funny we're bringing up hockey because he made his return to Chicago during the Chris Chelios retirement ceremony, and I found this to be a really classy act by Blackhawks fans. Even though Kane scored the OT winner in a Red Wings uniform against the Chicago Blackhawks, he received a rousing standing ovation from the crowd. So, really classy move from Chicago right there. Showing multiple superstars love right there. Patrick Kane, Chris Chelios, and now Cody Bellinger for another couple of years. So, where was I? Oh, yeah. So, free agency development. So I've never really understood why the MLB has been like the slowest of the big 4 when it comes to free agency moves, especially since the MLB makes more of an effort to market its players more rather than, say, the NHL. The NHL has some of the best talent. There's some of the best talent out there, but the NHL fails to do this thing called marketing, which I don't understand how you like. We talked about this last week or 2 weeks ago, where Charles Barkley, when he joined NHL on TNT for a guest speaker segment with Wayne Gretzky for 5 minutes. That 5 minutes, he did a better job of endorsing his love of hockey and marketing the game than Gary Bettman has done in 5 years. So, NHL, I don't understand how you do this, but hey, I'm not the one trying to run a league to appease millions of fans, so I guess not my problem. But
Right.
what's your take on this whole MLB situation, like the crappy jerseys, the slow free agency development, and all of these things? What's your take?
Yeah, no, the jerseys, not great. I don't like it. I like the jerseys the way they were before. I mean, you should be able to see the players, because not everyone knows every single player, and you might be looking, if you're either on TV or in the stands, like, you might want to know, and and it just doesn't even look good. Like, it's just smaller, and I don't know why it's the names are smaller and it's see through. It's very strange. As for the free agency, I mean, you're right. I feel like it does take a lot of time. I mean, there's still all these players who, these top players, spring training already started and they're still out there. I mean, and compared to other sports, I mean, NFL, obviously that's, a lot faster. I mean, we have news about the whole Saquon Barkley situation, which I also wanted to bring up.
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, this past season, it took Patrick Kane until, if I remember correctly, November to get signed. But then again, he's still recovering from off-season surgery, so that at least makes sense. But Blake Snell is fully healthy.
There's no reason why no one should take
Jordan Montgomery is fully healthy. Like, What the
Like, what are
heck
we
is going
doing
on?
here? Like, someone could really use like a pitcher. Like, I know the Yankees and the Mets probably could. So I mean, yeah, I don't know what's exactly going on, but
I mean,
yeah,
I understand like from Scott Boris's perspective because Scott Boris is one of those ultimatum one of those ultimatum agents where he's and of course we've seen Scott Boris act this way in the past, where he's basically like, give this player all this money or he walks. Um, I believe this happened during the 2004 World Series, where Alex Rodriguez, after already signing a 10-year, $252 million contract with the Rangers back in 2001, and this is after he got traded to the Yankees, obviously. During the World Series, A-Rod and Scott Boras announced that they're opting out of the contract. And of course, this has to be during the World Series. So this has to be a major talking point. And then A-Rod gets signed to a 10-year, $275 million deal afterwards. So, I mean, of course, like we wouldn't exactly remember that event now, but I mean, because we're like 3 years old at the time. But there's just still major news back then. And of course, Scott Boras hasn't really changed, but still, I mean, like I said, Snell and Montgomery. I mean, they're two of the craftiest lefties in the game. They have valuable experience. I mean, if I were to I'd personally give more preference to Jordan Montgomery because Blake Snell historically doesn't really go anything past like 6 innings. Montgomery at least goes past that in regular season and postseason starts. So, like me personally, I prioritize Montgomery over Snell, but regardless, I'd be more than happy to have either pitcher. So, and we all know there are certain pitchers that could. I mean, we all know there are certain teams that could use one, if not both pitchers. I mean, the New York Yankees could certainly use a number two ace, especially since you basically have zero pitching behind Garrett Cole. And
yeah,
Garrett Cole was a Cy Young winner last season. And if it weren't for Garrett Cole, the Yankees would. I mean, forget Aaron Judge being being out for a long time with his foot injury against the
right,
Dodgers game. Like, if you took Garrett Cole off that pitching staff, and count the relievers too, if you took Garrett Cole off the pitching staff, your pitching staff would kind of look like the Colorado Rockies.
yeah. There's
Yeah.
not much there. There's Rodon, like if you
Well, Rodon sucks. Well, at least year one,
so
Rodon sucked.
who had that no
And
hitter
that
last? Yeah, but who had Domingo German, right? He had the
Domingo
no hitter
Germán
against the A's.
threw the perfect game, but now it looks like he's not going to be back in a Yankees uniform anytime sooner.
Yeah,
Yeah. So Rodon sucked. Frankie Montas, I believe he threw 1 or 2 innings, and then he was out for the entire season last year. And so again, the Yankees basically have, and of course Nestor Cortez is just
right.
he's on or off. So
Yeah,
I mean, of course, there were talks like a few days ago about Snell being in contact with the Yankees. So it's possible it's possible some development may happen there, but it's only speculation until something is actually signed.
right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then other contract news, in New York, I saw Giants are unlikely to use their second straight franchise tag on Saquon Barkley.
I
And
don't think he's gonna like that.
yeah, I don't think, and they're also not gonna like offer him the contract that he turned down last year for I think $13-14 million, and they're also not going to offer him the franchise for 12.1. And as it
Did
is
they
like
say
last
anything
year,
last? Wait, do we know anything about his contract last year? If it was like 3-4 years for like 42 or 56?
like the one they offered him, or like the one
Yeah,
he took?
what he got offered last year?
I think it was some. I honestly don't remember on it. I think it was like 3 years for 14 or something like that. Or
So then it was similar to what's his name from the Colts? Jonathan Taylor's deal, like 3 years, 42. I think that's exactly what he signed for.
Yeah, I remember he agreed with he ended up signing a 1-year deal up to worth up to 11 million with incentives, and then I forgot what he yeah, Yeah, that's what happened last year. I forgot what he it was basically 10, but then there was
Yeah,
like,
I thought it was like 10 point
about a
something.
10.1, and then one with incentives. I don't exactly remember. Yeah, but I
I think
remember
it was
seeing
10-1. 10-1.
yeah, it was 10-1 and then up to 11 with incentives. So, and then that was last year. This year, I guess the franchise tag goes up to 12.1 since the second year. Um, and I think
And
last year he turned down
speaking of
the
franchise tags, T Higgins.
yeah, I saw the Bengals tagged him, so I guess he'll be staying. But yeah, yeah, for Saquon, it's like, I think he turned down last year. He turned down the offers for 13, 14 a year. I think there was another one where it's like two or like around 21 million for 2 years or something like around that range, or it might have been a little bit more. But yeah, no, it seems like he wants a long-term deal, and I mean I don't really blame him for that. At the same time, like
Like we said, we've said this from weeks ago. Like when we're covering the NFL season, the running
right.
back is a dead position. Like
Yeah,
the
but for
fullback,
the Giants,
the
yeah.
fullback is dead.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, aside
Unless
from
you're
the
like
occasional usage with like Kyle
use
Juszczyk
mhm,
or Ricard from the Ravens,
right.
like fullbacks are practically non-existent now. Like
Oh, yeah.
if you were to talk to football fans from 20 years ago, and even 10 years ago, some fullback names that ring a bell. That ring a bell. I mean, especially with me on the Patriots, James Devlin, number 46,
Mhm.
and with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, especially Allstott, number 40.
Right, right.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
fullbacks used to bring like a lot of like toughness and adversity to the game, but
Yeah,
now,
it's a short yardage,
yeah,
situation.
now the game has shifted from like toughness, grit, and just gladiator warfare style to
Right.
shiftier, speedier, sexier race cars. So like
Yeah.
that's why running backs are pretty much like are pretty much a dinosaur right now. It's only a matter of time before they're fully extinct. I mean, think about it. 30 years ago, 30 years ago, it was completely unfathomable, God,
Um, there you
unfathomable.
go.
Well, whatever. Oh, it's just a word.
Unfathomable.
Okay,
Yeah.
unthinkable. There we go. Better. Okay. 30 years ago, it was completely unthinkable for teams to win a Super Bowl unless if they had a ball dominant running back. And these weren't
Right.
like, running backs like, Isaiah Pacheco or Christian McCaffrey. These were running backs who just looked like all they did was lift weights all day. Like you said, these guys were built. Like they were just big,
Yeah.
giant, tough guys. I mean,
Like
like
Jerome Bettis, like the bus
Jerome.
or
Yeah,
something like
well,
that, for
he's a
example.
little bit more recent, 20 years ago. Like, if I were to bring it back a few more years, like, Earl Campbell's a name that rang a bell. Eric Dickerson,
Mhm.
Ernest Biner with the Browns, even Roger Craig to an extent with the 49ers. It was fairly it was fairly, hard to think that, I mean, sure, of course, like Jerry Rice existed, but,
Yeah.
uh, like still, not a whole lot of teams were won games without relying on the running backs. Like that was their number one weapon on offense. But now, 40 years later, bring back to the present, running backs are basically dead.
Yeah. It's
So
a passing league now, so,
of course, I mean, who knows? Maybe in another 20, 30 years, the game changes again because it took because if we're to throw back football to like really old school days, like like even like post World War II, like even like quarterbacks weren't really like all they weren't really all that valued. I mean, of course, Otto Graham was still there with the Cleveland Browns, but like he didn't have like say for example like today like Aaron Rodgers, like he wasn't exactly the Aaron Rodgers of today, but like because quarterbacks didn't really have that much of development back then in the 50s and era. I mean that was Jim Brown's time to shine during the late 50s, early 60s, and all that stuff. So you know, it, the game changes. Like it evolves over time to benefit other positions and to hurt other positions. So right now, right now it's a wide receiver and quarterbacks league. 20 years, no, not even 10 years ago. 20 years ago, it was a running backs league. Times are changing, so we'll see what happens with the NHL. But right now, Josh Jacobs,
yeah.
Saquon Barkley. They're
Hmm.
all in the same boat right now. They're
Yeah,
all there's
all
limited
playing the
jobs.
free
Yeah,
agency. So,
there's limited jobs in the market right now, and not a whole lot of teams are hiring. So
right. It'll be interesting to see what happens for sure with Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, St.
even
Tony
Derrick Henry.
Pollard, Derrick Henry, and Austin Eckler all not being franchise tagged. Those are some big names in the running back
Well,
market. I
well,
mean, those are, you
Derrick
know.
Henry is never going to get franchise tag. He's probably going to sign with another team.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's kind of like,
Or is he
he was,
going to
yeah,
retire? How old is he? Let me see. I mean, I doubt he's going to retire. Seems like he still has a couple more seasons in him.
right.
I mean, oh, he's 30. Uh, I think he's probably got a few more years in him.
Yeah, yeah. It's nice, like not quite where he used to be, and he's been, he's probably the oldest on that list by probably quite a few years. But at the same time, I think he definitely does have at least a few seasons. And Eckler, that's like another top fantasy back. I mean, it's just he's on the Chargers, but definitely very capable. Same thing, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, of course, back to the Giants. I mean, he really is like half of their offense. I mean, like, especially with
You
all the
could
stuff.
argue he is the only thing on their offense.
Yeah, because like with all the stuff going on with the quarterback situation, the offensive line being so bad, it negatively affects the receivers. So even though the Giants have some
Darren
decent
Waller barely
receivers,
getting the ball.
wait, what?
Darren Waller barely getting the
Exactly.
ball.
Jalen Hyatt, barely getting the ball. Like exactly, like that all happened because the quarterback and O line situation was so miserable. The receiver situation isn't the best either, but I feel like they still have talent there. It's not being utilized. So Saquon Barkley is the only thing that keeps the offense moving. So I'm kind of worried about, unless they get all of the other stuff fixed in the draft or like free agency, maybe like it's gonna be tough like without him. Like I don't know what and I guess they might have they're gonna have to address. I mean, they have Eric Gray. But I mean, they're probably going to need another running back to, there's some good running backs in the draft. Like, I think like Blake Corum, who
Yeah, but
else?
you know they're not
Some,
going to get drafted high, and also like
yeah,
some other NFL news to bring. While you're going to round about to college sports in a bit, Eric
right.
Bieniemy signed with the UCLA.
Yeah,
That was
I did
something
see
which
that
was
as
a bit of a
well.
shock.
Right. As their head coach. Yeah, that is interesting. But it's like, as a yeah, I just felt like he definitely deserved the head coaching role
I mean, but
instead of
I
offensive
mean,
coordinator.
I
But
mean
we'll see, I guess.
when Dan Quinn was brought in to be head coach of Washington,
Right.
it it kind of signals that ownership, like Josh Harris, even though like there's been a huge change of ownership and and
Oh, thank God.
and
Yeah.
everything in terms of Washington, it still shows that they're not willing to give Bieniemy a chance. I mean,
Yeah.
Bieniemy was only the offensive architect of one of the best offenses that we've seen over the past 5 years. And even after his departure, like we're able to see the Chiefs' offense regress, but not regress to the
Right.
point where they sucked.
Yeah.
But still, the
Right.
enemy left his mark on the NFL in
Hmm.
terms of orchestrating one of the most electric offenses in recent memory. So
Right.
I don't really understand what the hell Washington was doing by. I mean, of course, Eric Bieniemy. It seems like he just left on his own terms. And
Right.
do you blame him? Not really.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I guess he'll get his shot at the college ranks. I mean, so who knows? I mean, we just saw Jim Harbaugh going back to the NFL after winning the championship at Michigan, so I mean, you never know how these things work. I mean, that could be an interesting job. I mean, we've seen a lot of coaches, do both. I mean, like, Chip Kelly, just trying to think of a few, but
Chip
like,
Kelly wasn't
I mean,
exactly successful after.
yeah, that's
Well,
true.
he had was it one good season with Philadelphia, and then just
Right. Exactly. Pete Carroll, I think that's
with
probably a
San
better
Francisco.
example. Even like Greg Schiano, Nick Saban, they did it, but I'm
Well,
thinking more. No,
Greg Schiano. Wait, when did Greg Schiano make the jump to the NHL? I mean, NHL, NFL.
he coached the Buccaneers for a couple seasons in like
Oh yeah,
2010.
yeah, that's right. And then he returned to Rutgers. I think
Right.
he's. I think at one point there was even speculation he'd come to the Patriots
Yeah.
in the. This was during the 18 off season.
Yeah. I think he was also Ohio State's defensive coordinator at that time period, but yeah, I think there was, and then he turned it down, and I think he took a gap year or something, and then he went back to
And
Rutgers.
of course, Nick
Thank
Saban,
God.
perhaps the most famous example. Like,
Mm-hmm.
of
Go
course,
college
he was
coach. Yeah.
he was in the NFL for a long time, and eventually got his chance to be a head coach. Didn't exactly work out well. He
Right.
decided to take his head coaching to the college level, and lo and behold, he's the greatest college football coach in history.
Yeah, it's just yeah. I mean, all those national championships that they've won. I mean, obviously, people could talk about all of that more, but I mean, no, seriously, it's just like I guess it's a different. It's hard to do both well. It's like I feel like most coaches do either one or the other. Well, because it's a different game. College, you're dealing with all these issues now they have nowadays, and college kids, and like it's a different sport a little bit. And then NFL is like a different ball game. So I guess you have to master different skill sets to, so sometimes like, the best college coaches are very average in the NFL and, vice versa maybe. So, but anyway, yeah. So in terms of the running back market, I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, Tony Pollard, another guy who I believe he had a huge impact on the Cowboys offense when Zeke,
Yeah, yeah.
left. He was really the guy who stepped up, and like it'll be interesting to see what happens when if he's not going to be there. But who knows? Like I mean, maybe they'll have someone else in there. And with Cowboys, they're not really like my problem, but like kind of the same thing. Like Saquon, like he's actually a big part of their offense. Although they have CeeDee Lamb, of course they have Dak Prescott, but yeah, running back market in general, a lot of big names. Should be interesting. I don't know where Saquon would be headed to. I heard some rumors about the Texans. Which would be a very interesting
But they
situation.
got Damian Pierce.
Exactly. Yeah. It was actually funny. I think like a couple years ago, I had Damian Pierce and Saquon in my fantasy team, and that actually worked out pretty well. And Damian Pierce was like big reason why, because I think Saquon at one point had injuries, and I get to get someone else, but he was consistent. And then, but anyway, yeah. So I mean, Damian Pierce pretty solid. So yeah. Anyway, we'll see about that. That's kind of the football news. I mean, I think we're
What
like,
did you say if he signs with the other Texas team?
oh, oh man. Yeah, I've seen stuff about that. That would be a nightmare. Oh my god, I don't even want to think about that. Oh
Would you burn
no,
his
no
jersey?
way. Actually, don't even. I don't know. Well, luckily I don't have one, so I don't have to make that decision. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd be pretty upset. Like, I don't think I'd ever. I don't know. I mean, obviously it's like you like the player, but it's just like changing teams to, and it's like DeMarco Murray going from like the Cowboys to like the Eagles, like
That was a different thing. Like,
But that
it's
was
one thing
like,
about the player,
yeah,
but he went from arch enemy to arch enemy.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it like, for example, if I can't even utter those filthy words out of my mouth. I was gonna say about Tom going towards
Like the
someone
Jets
within our division. I
or the
can't even
Bills or
utter.
Fins.
I can't even utter those
Exactly.
filthy words
Like
out of my
Saquon
mouth.
on the Cowboys, it's like, or like you know what I mean? It's just like, it's like
I
if he
mean,
went to the Eagles, it's like the same thing. Like I'd have the
listen,
same reaction.
I imagine if he went to Washington, it wouldn't be that
It
sour.
wouldn't be that bad. I mean, it wouldn't be as bad if he went to Washington, but the
I
other
mean,
two, like, forget
like I said,
about it. Like,
it was bad enough for me to have to watch Brady and Gronk in a different uniform, but I still
division
loved him.
rival.
I still loved him. But I mean, like, I will say the weirdest game I ever had to watch was Tampa Bay versus New England,
Right.
week 4 of the
It's like,
2021 season. Because
yeah. It's like, who do I root
part of
for?
because even though I'm a Patriots fan first, I can't lie. Part of me wanted Brady to win the game, and like when
Hmm.
Nick Folk missed a field goal, I'm like, do I celebrate Brady winning, or should I be should I be sad that the Patriots lost? I mean, like, it's perhaps the weirdest game I ever watched.
Yeah. And those,
But
yeah, when you're conflicted, like your mind might tell you one thing, and then your heart will tell you the other. Like your heart usually knows who you're actually rooting for if you're like mixed up. But like, so that's interesting because like oftentimes I'll think I'm rooting for one team, and then I'm like ended up, I'm cheering for the other one in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe it's not that bad. But like, in any case, Saquon going to the Cowboys or the Eagles for that matter, like that would be that bad. That would be
I mean,
the end of the
if it
world.
makes you feel better, I don't think Eagles are in the move right now. I mean,
Yeah, I
we're
don't think
still
they
focused
have.
on DeAndre Swift. I mean,
Yeah, DeAndre Swift's a
I
good back.
I
Yeah.
I could see like
The
the
Cowboys
Cowboys
maybe though,
potentially
if they
could.
move on from Pollard and
I
yeah,
I mean, it's not like these division rival transfers aren't a stranger. I mean, Curtis Martin famously, he was a Patriot. Then he signed a 6-year, $36 million poison pill contract with the Jets. So I imagine for Patriots fans that are older, I mean, I wasn't really like alive during the Curtis Martin era, with the Patriots. I imagine that was very weird for a lot of them. I certainly imagine that. But
Right.
I don't
Because
know.
I remember, Darrell Revis, like, didn't he like go to the
Oh
Patriots?
yeah, that's right. He signed with us for 1 year, won a Super Bowl, and then went back to New Jersey.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was fun. I imagine like
That's crazy.
Jets fans during the 2014 season. Oh, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I guess he went ring chasing. So,
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
Revis Island. So,
Why'd you willingly be part of such a such a sucky organization? Hey, you won 1 year. You solidified yourself as the champion, and they just came back for money for the Jets. So whatever, it worked out well for both of us.
yeah, it did.
If he goes into the Hall of Fame, as a Patriot, I will laugh my head off. But
Okay,
that will never
no, Darrell
happen.
Revis is a Jet for sure.
But
Like, I mean, yeah.
I think we can agree on this. He's a Jet first, a Tampa Bay
Mhm.
Bucks second, and a Patriot third.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, anyway, yeah, another NFL news, I guess, before we shift over. I mean, the combine's starting soon. Everyone's thinking about mock drafts and who are gonna, our teams are gonna pick, especially, fans of teams who have high picks like the Patriots and the Giants and, maybe even the Jets a little bit. But should be an interesting
Wait,
draft. I mean,
where do the Giants stand on the rankings?
six. They have the sixth pick.
Oh, they're not too far. They're not too.
Too far. Yeah. Not too
They
far ahead
they
or
could
behind.
potentially make a move, but
They might trade. I don't know. I hope they get a quarterback. I don't know. I feel like
see
they
the
might
thing
go
is,
O-line. I'm not
I
sure, but we'll
I
see.
highly doubt
Kind
you're
of
going to
don't.
go for a quarterback because
Yeah, just
like
have someone behind Daniel Jones. Like so they can get rid of him after this season if it doesn't go well, or at least have a guy behind him.
speaking of getting rid of quarterbacks, you hear about Russell Wilson with the news, like potentially getting released. He said he'd be willing to take the veterans minimum to play anywhere else.
Yeah, that's crazy though. I thought they had a whole thing going in Denver, but yeah.
Hey,
Is what
some
it is.
relationships aren't meant to last. I think we've seen that.
Yeah. It was just shocking what happened with the way they handled his situation.
No,
After they
it's
traded so
purely
much for him to get there, like that's how they,
it's purely incompetent the way like everything was handled.
yeah,
Purely incompetent.
yeah. What a mess! Like it's just, why would they not even commit to him because of his like injury guarantee or whatever? And like the season he did bad, they were like fine with him. Then he does better. They beat the Chiefs, and they're like, oh yeah, like we're not too happy with this. Like I was just like, what? Like what are you
And
talking about?
also, like the thing with Sean Payton, like I mean, I don't remember the exact words, but he said this last season where it's like where they benched Russell Wilson for like the last couple of games of the season in favor of Jared Stidham because
Mhm.
he felt like the offense needed a spark. I can tell you as a Patriots fan, Jared Stidham and Russell Wilson are two vastly different quarterbacks.
Right.
And call me crazy, I think Russell Wilson is more of an electric quarterback than Jared Stidham.
Oh yeah.
Am I crazy for saying that?
No. And I thought he was finding his magic again. Like I mean, but anyway, well, it is what it is. I feel like he has some more. I don't know
See,
about the Super Bowl,
see,
like he was saying, but he has some more years in him for
I mean,
sure. And
I'm just gonna
you know,
dream up a fantasy scenario. Russell Wilson gets released. We pick him up for the minimum. Then
oh,
we take Marvin Harrison Jr., third overall
okay,
pick. And then let's see, we sign Mike Evans in free agency. Then we re-sign Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki.
hmm,
Then we pick up Xavier Howard because he just got cut. And lo and behold, we're Super Bowl 59 champions. There we go.
nice. Well, with that, I think it's probably time we move on from the football. But I mean, in all seriousness, like yeah, no, it's always fun. I'm sure we'll talk about the mock drafts and all of that stuff leading up to the draft. I mean, it's still a couple months away, but Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully, Giants go quarterback or maybe receiver if maybe Neighbors or Odunze if Harrison's taken. But I'd say quarterback. You can't even really argue the O line because I feel like that's been holding the quarterback in the whole offense back even further. So I wouldn't hate it if they go Joe Alt, although I kind of would. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of options they can go. Well, we'll see how the draft shakes out and if they decide to make any moves and what happens.
I
So I
mean,
feel like,
I'd argue, like, personally, I'd argue it's not exactly the quarterback. I mean, we'll transition after this, but
yeah.
it's like, I'd
Hmm.
personally argue that the foundation of an offensive line is more important than that of a quarterback, because we've seen we've seen absolutely amazing quarterbacks just get
That's true
obliterated on the field,
because they don't have
because
the
they didn't have
line.
an O line.
Yeah,
Most famous example for us is Joe Burrow. If he
yeah.
had
Oh,
some
yeah.
semblance of an offensive line, he'd be a two-time Super Bowl champion.
Hmm. Yeah,
Like, I'm
yeah.
talking
Well,
back to back. Yeah.
yeah, it makes it. Oh, the offensive line makes a huge. I mean, a huge difference as a Giants fan.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know that
And
because
then
you know.
David Carr with the tech. David Carr wouldn't have been puking his guts out by week 5, and had his brain turned into a pile of mushed up spaghetti.
Yeah. It was just the worst seeing like Daniel Jones go down and then Tyrod Taylor get hit. I think even DeVito got like knocked out because like
I
the
mean,
offensive
then,
line was
like,
just so
Tyrod
bad.
Taylor's cursed because he seems to always have these injuries. So
I know.
him
Yeah.
and Teddy Bridgewater have been two of the most cursed quarterbacks in the league. But
Yeah.
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 Anyways, you wanted
Yeah.
to talk about something else?
Sure. Yeah, I guess last thing I'll say before we move on is in terms of quarterbacks, I mean, I feel like well, yeah, I mean if they really want one, they can go up and get one. I feel like at 6, who's probably gonna be available at that option, maybe I mean Jaden Daniels would probably be right about where it's at.
I
If
don't
you
know.
want to wait till the second round and get like a
I mean,
receiver, they could
I mean,
get like someone like
it could
Penix
be
or McCarthy. I think that would not be
it
the
could
worst
be very
idea.
well possible. It could be very well possible that the first 3 picks are all quarterbacks: Caleb, Drake, and Jaden.
Mhm. That would put
That's a
us in a
very
tough.
strong possible.
I feel like it wouldn't be a bad idea to go receiver and then wait on like a guy like Michael Penix because I was really impressed with what I saw out of him in the
Yeah,
playoffs
Penix,
or McCarthy
McCarthy.
even. Yeah, I mean, one of
There's
those guys.
options.
Yeah, there's
The
options later
question,
in the draft.
but see,
Yeah.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. Like, and of course, let's transition after this. This is a
Hmm.
question that the GMs have to answer, not us. There are
Right.
options, but are these the right options?
Yeah, so you never know, but I feel like, Penix would probably be
Like, come on,
higher because
come
he
on,
has excellent,
if,
placement, a big arm, a
like, for
great pocket
example,
passer. Because of his injuries, he's down lower. And McCarthy, because he's more like a game manager, but I've seen him make ridiculous plays and, he can use his legs. So I feel like both of them, they have high upside. And, because they won't be drafted early, you might even consider it a steal if that works out in the second round. But then again, you don't know. Maybe they are not really at
yeah,
that NFL level
I
of
mean,
Caleb Williams and the other guys.
like we said, if Patrick Mahomes was actually taken by the Chicago Bears during the 2017 time, would he actually still be a quarterback? I have no idea. He fell into.
Yeah,
I mean, the Chiefs made a trade up for him, and I think
right.
this is, if I remember correctly, right before New Orleans was about to take him. And lo and behold, I think there's a pretty successful partnership with Kansas City. But of course, like, Kansas City made an effort to build around their quarterbacks.
Oh yeah.
Chicago has been functioning without this thing called the quarterback for about 100 years now. About as old as the franchise is. Like, in the history of the Chicago Bears, the greatest quarterback they've ever had is Jay Cutler. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
I mean, hey, like Justin Fields is, I don't know what they're gonna do about that, but he's shaping up to be decent. But I mean, if you
Well, that
want to
is
get
if
Caleb
the
Williams,
Bears decide to keep him.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd still say to get Caleb Williams because you're in that one position,
You
and
you could probably
I mean,
flip Fields for maybe a third at this point. Maybe.
exactly.
Question is who'd be willing to take it.
Probably a lot of teams. Like I don't know, whoever needs a quarterback, I guess. That's a good question, honestly. I really don't know. Yeah,
Or
I'm sure someone would be.
Justin Fields is from Ohio State, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect. We draft Marvin Harrison Jr. third overall pick. We trade Justin Fields for a third round pick. There we go.
Um,
Boom. All right. Anyways,
yeah. The
let's go back.
NFC Patriots. All right. So, wow, we talked a lot about football in a show that we were not even planning on talking about that originally. But so
Yeah,
baseball.
it's a bit strange.
Yeah, I guess we've been on it for so long, it's hard to get off. But anyway, baseball, football covered. Yeah, let's talk MLB. I mean MLB, NBA, NHL, and then I guess we can end with college basketball to kind of bring something new into it. But yeah, I mean I feel like last time we kind of talked about the All-Star weekend in NBA. Now it's kind of like regular season plays kind of started up again, second half. It's been a
Finally.
while since we what.
I said finally. Now we actually
Yeah,
have real basketball back.
yeah,
Well,
and it's been
no,
a while since
real
we.
basketball. Real basketball is playoff time. So this
Oh
is
yeah,
semi-real
yeah,
basketball.
yeah, no, yeah. NBA playoffs a lot of fun. Obviously, NHL playoffs is also a lot of fun. You might even argue more fun, but
No,
yeah,
NHL.
that's the real stuff, right?
You give me a choice: NHL playoffs over NBA playoffs any day of the week. Any day of the week. It's not
Any
even a
day.
contest
I guess
for
for
me, at
me, because
least.
I'm so much more of a basketball fan, even though I do like hockey. I guess I'd probably say
I mean,
NBA, but
come
there's so
on.
much more intensity in the NHL playoffs compared to,
The quality of basketball
NBA.
has severely declined.
Yeah, yeah, it's not great. I mean, it's not much defense, but it's been a while since we looked at the standings and did a little deep dive, so I
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
wanted to,
come on.
you know,
Even in like a 10-2 blowout in hockey, you still have people ready to kill each other with fists.
exactly. Did you see the Rempe versus
Yeah, Rempe,
Deloria fight and all
Rempe
the other
versus
ones?
hey,
Mm.
Matt Rempe might be the new fighting face of the NHL. I mean,
Yeah,
no,
no, that was such a good fight, dude.
listen,
Like,
the UFC they got their fighters. We the NHL we got Matt Rempe.
yeah, yeah, just absolutely going at it with Deloria and the Flyers, but yeah. And while we'll get to hockey in like in maybe like 5-10 minutes. In the meantime, let's take a dive. We could take a dive at the NHL standings too, because I feel like we haven't quite done that in a little while either. But same thing with the NBA. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, in the Eastern Conference, I think it's all about the Celtics. 45-12, best record in the NBA, 8-game winning streak. Victory over the Knicks at the Garden. 2 victories over the Nets recently, including 50 points, a 50-point win at home, and then the night before, Nets
Which
actually
Check
played
has Vaughn
pretty.
his job right there.
Yeah, well, that might be, for the best for the Nets' sake, I guess. But yeah, I guess that was the icing or the final straw. But the Celtics are absolutely rolling. I mean, that's a good Knicks team this year, and I mean, but the Celtics are just. I mean, their 5 starters are double figures in that game. I mean, Porzingis has been great. Tatum. Of course, you got Jaylen Brown. Drew Holiday, and even like Derek White. Horford. Like the whole team's just clicking, playing really well. Jason Tatum's playing great basketball. Jaylen Brown is.
You could argue
You know,
you could argue Boston's weak spot is maybe their bench, but
yeah, their bench. Yeah,
even then amongst their front eight, they have a lot of flexibility. I mean, not front eight,
yeah.
top
Pritchard.
eight. Like
Mm-hmm.
they have a
Horford,
lot of
Hauser.
flexibility.
Yeah, exactly. They have a lot of guys who can play at a high level.
Yeah, last year you could argue the Celtics had perhaps the best bench in the NBA, but now it's gone now because of course Robert Williams was on the team. He got traded away to where is he
Yeah,
now?
I think
Portland.
the time
I
where
think he's in Portland.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And then of
So,
course Marcus Smart not there, but I mean he was a starter. But I feel like that's kind of worked out well. Like Holiday coming in, and you kind of get a similar defensive presence. Porzingis was such a good addition to that team.
but
Like
the
you
thing
know,
is, like Drew Holiday has, I mean, Drew Holiday and Marcus Smart are terrific defenders. You could argue
yeah,
Marcus Smart is perhaps is the better defender of the two, but Holiday has consistent scoring prowess. Smart, he has his scoring moments. Like there have been moments where he's been lights out in terms of shooting, and then there have been moments where he can't hit the broadside of a barn. So I mean, yeah,
yeah,
like,
I agree. Yeah,
and even then, like Porzingis, like when the Celtics brought him in, they're not like Joe Mazzulla didn't bring Porzingis aside and say, look, we needed to score 70,000 points a game. All right, no, like Porzingis' role as being like the third or fourth best player on the court, and the
Mm-hmm.
reason why he's succeeding in that is because it works well in that spot. Porzingis doesn't have to be the alpha, and in the apparent night where three of the five suddenly can't remember how to shoot a basketball, Porzingis is right there to clean up the mess. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it works.
Plus, he stretches the floor too. So I mean, he does both of those pretty well. Cleaning up. Obviously with his height, post up ability and dunks, but then he can also shoot threes. So like that's always good to have in the NBA today, especially. So but yeah, I mean, everything working out for the Celtics right now. I guess I got the Sixers tomorrow. Kind of, another one of those rivalry games. They've had a lot of series, but yeah, no, they're good. Good to go. They're quite a bit comfortably ahead of second place. Cleveland,
Cleveland, like
7.5 games
a
ahead of
few
them.
games ahead, but I mean,
Yeah,
whereas if you look at the West,
I was about to say. Yeah,
yeah,
the
the
one in
West
the
is
Heat. Yeah.
the West is just a bloodbath right now.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, they're
first
all
and
on top
second,
of each other.
yeah, T Wolves and Thunder are tied basically for first, and
Right.
then Denver's not too far behind them. The Clippers
Yeah.
aren't too far behind them, and to an extent, Sacramento and Phoenix. I mean, of course, they got a few spots from the one seed, but they're
Yeah.
not all that. They're still there, but
Yeah, they're still
maybe
there.
not exactly one seed threatening, but they're still there. Oh yeah, did you see the thing about the Clippers rebrand?
I did, yeah. It's nice. It looks really good. Like I like it. I like all of that. The logo, the jerseys, the arena's gonna be like it cool. Like it's gonna be good for them, and they have the luck to go with their star power. I guess now
Yeah, I mean, for once, even for once, like the Clippers aren't really like relying on too heavily on this load management thing. Like
yeah,
most of their stars are making an effort to play
yeah,
or making an effort to play almost all the games,
uh-huh.
and they've been clicking. Um,
Yeah, it's been working lately for sure. I mean, with Westbrook and Harden and Kawhi and PG, like they're finally all healthy and playing, and it's working. So I mean, I'm glad they finally figured that part out because um, it sucks if you have a bunch of all stars on your team and then they don't win anything. Obviously, like the Clippers have been going through that for years, and the Nets went through that, and a lot of super teams didn't really succeed, but maybe theirs will get a chance to at least make a deep run. And yeah, I mean, the West is, this year it's interesting because the T Wolves and the Thunder are at the top right now. And then the Nuggets and the Clippers are probably the next two best teams. But in the playoffs, I'd probably take that star power and the championship experience from the Nuggets. And player like Jokic and Murray, I'd probably take those over teams like the T Wolves and the Thunder, still kind of new to the stage. Then you go down the standings and you got Sacramento, who was such a fun team from last year, and they're showing they're for real. Then don't count out, of course, the Suns with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal and Devin Booker, and then Pels Mavs. I mean, the Mavs with Luka Doncic, that could be a dangerous team. I mean, look at this play-in, like the Lakers and the Warriors right there. I mean,
yeah,
that's going to be really interesting.
the fakers, and the Warriors. I'm telling you, like the play-in is the worst thing that ever happened in NBA creation in the last 20 years. Like because it really waters down the standard for what playoff teams should be. It really does.
Yeah, I know, and we talked about that like a lot last week about
Exactly.
yeah,
And even
hmm
though they currently have an above 500 record at the time of this recording, 31-28, the Lakers, they've
right,
been super. To call them substandard this past season is an insult to the word substandard. There's no need for the Lakers to be magically willed into the playoffs because of some
yeah,
stupid creation of a ridiculous play-in tournament.
yeah. I mean, you should try. You should draw the line at the 8. I mean, actually, the way the teams look, that
Yes.
like you have a very clear argument. Like what in the East of the Magic, 32 and 26, like versus the Bulls 27 and 30. Like in the West, the Mavs 33 and 24 versus the Lakers 31-28. You have a really good case. But if you remember a few years ago, remember like the Lakers Warriors for a playoff spot. I feel like the ratings are going to be like it's going to be another one of those like high rating. If the standings hold
The
up like this, people are going to watch
The
that.
NBA making decisions on ratings. Who would have thought?
Right. But like, could you imagine? Like, well, I mean, I guess we already saw it a few years ago. All LeBron stuff, and, for a playoff spot.
Both these teams are just walking mediocrity right now. And even
Yeah.
no, I
Yeah.
can't even say mediocrity. Both these teams just suck.
I know. They had the triple overtime game a few weeks ago, and that was a really good one between the two of them. But other than that, they've been both very average this season, and it's kind of
Not
a
even
shame,
average,
honestly, but below
just below
average.
average.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It seems like they might be in for something like that this season. I guess Klay Thompson's kind of not really been finding his shooting until he came off the bench, and then he torched everyone again. So that's been going on over there. The Lakers, I don't know. I mean, I haven't really been following too much, but it's like last year they made kind of a deep run, and then this year they're not really quite there yet. Same thing with the Warriors. But yeah, I mean, last year I think the Lakers beat the Warriors in a playoff series, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, those teams are kind of towards the bottom of things. I feel like it's a year for the Nuggets or the Clippers in the West, probably, maybe even the Thunder or the T-Wolves to make some noise. The Suns, you can never really count out teams like that, or the Mavs. But I feel like if I had to pick, it'd probably be the Nuggets, Clippers in the Western Conference Finals.
I mean, the Suns you can't count out. You can't count out unless they're playing a European basketball player. Then they're dead.
Yeah, then you can count them out.
Giannis,
Yeah, exactly.
Jokic. Luka, then Jokic.
Yeah.
3 years in a row, they've been completely humiliated by a European basketball player. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. It's going to be fun again if, Kevin Durant's team doesn't succeed, I guess, as a Nets fan, or whatever. But, because he seems to do that wherever he goes. And, like, the rest of the fan base is, like, probably don't like him for that. But in any case, I mean, that's the West. In the East, obviously, we talked about the Celtics, the Cavs. Cavs are playing well lately too. I mean, they with Donovan Mitchell, and they went on a big run to come all the way up the standings and get into second place. The Bucks hanging in there.
I mean,
I
still didn't really understand the Griffin firing and bringing in Doc Rivers.
I know, like what, like that's how I don't understand how they think that's gonna work.
I mean, hey, listen, if Milwaukee wants to do the choking early, fine by me.
Yeah, it's gonna be so funny when they have an early exit from the playoffs, and then Doc Rivers makes some sort of ridiculous quote, which he's already doing again. And he's like, he was like, he comes into the job and he's like, I don't even. What did he say? Like something about the pressure of the job, and he's like, I was just
I
like,
don't
dude,
even know if
you're
anything.
Like second in the East. Like, what are you?
No, I thought he told the front office, like, I'm not even sure why you're doing this.
Did he? Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't
something
really.
like that.
He doesn't have the track record, and
I mean, and even though the Knicks are behind by a few games in comparison to the Bucks at the time of this recording, I still take the Knicks over. I'd probably still take the Knicks over the Bucks in a 7-game series.
I probably would too, just because of the life they've shown, and like they've really impressed this season, and I think by then Julius Randle will probably be healthy, and right now they're going through some injuries as well. But Knicks have been a fun story for some New York basketball fans, I guess. Not really too much for me, but I mean, I don't know. I'm happy when the city's happy. I guess I'll say that. So
really, you'd root for your crosstown rival? I mean, I imagine Yankees fans would never be happy with Mets fan success. Think of it this way.
It's complicated.
Think of it this way.
I mean,
Philadelphia fans don't exactly like it when Pittsburgh fans succeed. See the Flyers and the Penguins.
That's
see
true.
The Eagles and the Steelers, and especially if we look at the Battle of Texas over the past couple of years, Astros and Rangers fans despise each other, and likewise, Cowboys and Texans fans aren't exactly best friends either.
Huh? Yeah.
And
yeah.
Of course, let's not forget Lakers, Clippers. They're ready to kill each other at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
I mean, Dodgers Angels. I don't really know if we can call that a rivalry.
Look, I'm glad the Nets owned them for the past decade.
Yeah.
Huh?
No, I was gonna say Dodgers Angels too, but I don't know if that one exactly counts.
All right. Well, I guess I mean, I don't like the Knicks. I mean, I like I mean, the Nets owned them for the past decade and made me very happy. Now then the Knicks are kind of stealing the spotlight. And I'm jealous, but it's upsetting that seeing the Knicks this good and the Nets this bad. But it's weird, even as a even as a Devils fan, when the Rangers did that good in the cup playoffs. Like, I mean, it's like part of me like hates it, and then the other part of me is like, well, at least they're putting on a show for New York. And for basketball, I feel like it's less hated than they're like. As a Devils fan, I probably hate the Rangers more than as a Nets fan, I hate the Knicks, if that makes any sense. And plus,
Yep.
in the East, there's so much bad blood with the Nets and the Celtics and the Sixers and even the Bucks. Although I kind of have a little bit of a soft spot because of Giannis and Dame, where it's like I'd rather see the Knicks or the Bucks probably than like Celtics or Sixers, like go far. Like last playoffs, I was in hell because those two teams are facing off in a series. But yeah, Sixers. Speaking of Joel Embiid, I guess they need him back. They're treading water, but they'll probably still make the playoffs. And the Pacers have been hanging in there all season.
Let me ask you this, but let me ask you this before you wrap up and I guess go to college basketball maybe.
Yeah.
Of course, like over the past couple of weeks, there's been a lot of controversy about the whole 65 game minimum thing for an MVP.
Right.
Of course, given that Embiid gets injured roughly every 8 seconds, what do you think of the rule? Because here's my thing: you can prove you're the MVP. I mean, even though I despise the Sixers and I really hate Joel Embiid, I will say this: MVPs, you can show your worth on the court and on the field, speaking, and off the court and off the field at the same time. Because famous example, of course, let's go back to your favorite football team of all time, the Dallas Cowboys. 2020. Remember when Dak broke his leg? And the Cowboys went like 4-12 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then magically Dak comes back the next season, and they're back as a double-digit win team. That right there showed Dak as an MVP candidate. Right?
Yeah.
Was the MVP right there?
Yeah.
And of course, like for example, right now, Nikita Kucherov in the NHL. I mean, I personally don't want him to win the Hart Trophy. I'd rather that go to Nathan McKinnon. But Nikita Kucherov is somehow single-handedly dragging the Tampa Bay Lightning into the playoffs. Well, at least he's trying to. You take Nikita Kucherov off that ice for even a 5-game skid, the Lightning just might spiral out of being in the playoffs. So again, like I think you can showcase your worth to the team and to the league in both being on the court and off the court.
Yeah.
But at the same time, maybe 65 is a little bit too much in basketball. But
yeah, when players miss games, they take games off. Then there's injuries.
Maybe it's a little bit too. 60. I'd be fine with 60.
60. But I think because you shouldn't put too much of a cap on it. At the same time, I mean, you should be playing most of the games. You don't want someone to play 30 games or 35, and I agree.
Regardless of how many games Embiid has played this season, he's not even going to get to 60 at this rate.
Yeah, exactly, because he's going to probably miss most of the regular season until the playoffs.
But still, as I said before, as an MVP, you showcase your worth to the team both on and off the ice.
And
of course, injury being the most famous example of off the ice. So, court, field, ice, whatever, all the same thing.
I agree. Yeah, and then I mean, I guess well, just to finish the standings run through. I mean, so Celtics, Cavs, Bucks, Knicks, Sixers, Pacers, Heat, Magic, I guess are probably gonna round out that 7-8. Bulls, Hawks, probably the only real contenders for 9-10. And then
come on, there's ridiculous in-season tournament garbage. I mean, that was a different level of garbage. but this play-in tournament garbage. The Atlanta Hawks, who are 25-32 right now as the 10th seed, are they really worthy of competing for a playoff spot in this ridiculous thing? Are you kidding me, NBA? See, right now what the NBA is doing is they're rewarding crap. They're rewarding substandard basketball. You're telling me a team that's 25-32 deserves a chance at the playoffs? Get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Stop.
So stupid.
Stop watering down your already weak game. The NBA has declined severely over the past few years, and the events, especially over the last 3-4 seasons, have truly proven how much this game sucks today. I mean, it sounds harsh, but I will stand by that. The NBA sucks today.
I agree, and it's just the play-in tournament
out of the big four sports. The NBA is fourth on my list. I put the NFL at one.
Hmm.
I put the NHL at two, and I put the MLB at three. And
Yeah.
of course, there's a big gap between three and four. Like one and two, there's not that much gap. Two and three, there's a little bit of gap. Three, there's about 50 miles buried beneath some rock, and then there's the NBA.
Yeah, yeah. Might as well just put another league in the middle of it too, just to. Yeah, no, I get
Yeah,
what
I'll
you're
put
saying. Yeah,
yeah.
but in terms of Big Four, but like, sucks because like the NBA is my favorite league, just to when I just to get my mind
Well,
off
10,
things or
10
whatever,
years ago, you could
and
argue the NBA
relax
was the
and enjoy
best.
it. But
10
yeah,
years ago, you could argue the NBA was the best of the big four sports.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
maybe its only real competition probably would have been the NFL.
Right.
Now it's fairly arguably easy that the NBA is the worst of the big four leagues,
Yeah.
at
It's
least
going
here in the United States.
in the wrong direction.
EuroLeague basketball is still very strong.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, a lot of my friends do say, they like college better, and it's just getting worse with less and less defense and these changes, and it sucks that in out of in a league where 20 teams make the playoffs and 10 per conference, that my Brooklyn Nets are like falling farther away from that race now. Although I checked the score and they're out by 26 against the Grizzlies, but Grizzlies are also in a similar position where they're not going to make the play in the West, so that doesn't really say too much, I guess. What happened to is John Morant even playing or no?
No,
I don't know.
he tore his labrum. He tore his
Oh
labrum
yeah, I
in the
forgot
beginning of the
about that.
season.
Oof, yeah, no wonder they're. So that's rough. He was suspended for all that time. Then that happened, and yeah, so they're a lottery team too. So like I texted you this. Out of 12 competent teams in the East, the Nets are the second worst, and the Raptors are breathing down their neck now because they beat the
Yeah,
Nets, by about 30, and then they're actually starting to win some games. So I mean, and then you have the joke that's the Charlotte Hornets and whatever the Wizards and the Pistons are doing, which is just terrible. And that's the bottom of the East is so
they're
bad. It's like not
they're
even worth
basically the
mentioning.
G League of the NBA. They're
Yeah,
basically the G.
they should
The
just be demoted to the G League because this is like insane, like how bad, like especially like the Pistons and the Wizards, like I mean, like you got to be kidding me, like like the Pistons, like they can't even make a shot in warm-ups, like did you see that video? Like it's just, at least they found a way to win some games like after that whole thing ended, but I mean, oh my god, like it's just terrible. And then like anyway, so the East, bottom of the East is trash. I mean, the bottom of the West is not that great, but at the top, I mean, the Celtics are far and away with it. And then the Knicks, I think, are going to make things interesting in the playoffs, and so are the Cavs and the Bucks, and those are probably going to be your final four, and maybe the Sixers have something to say about it. And then, yeah, and then in the West, you know, uh, probably like well, we already talked about that, but probably Nuggets, Clippers, T Wolves, Thunder, and then maybe you see something with the Suns or the Mavs possibly. But I feel like the East playoffs are going to be really fun to watch, because like all these teams are going to go at it, like the Celtics, the Bucks, and the Cavs, the Knicks. That's going to be really interesting to see. And like I said, the Sixers, we'll see what they do. But seeing like a Celtics Knicks series or Cavs Bucks series in the playoffs, I think that could
that's
be really
probably going to
good.
be at least a second round matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm for I'm looking at the second round, obviously, but oh, and then I guess don't forget about the Miami Heat, like don't write them off. They're the seventh
Oh
seed, but
right, yeah.
we saw what they did last year, so like, yeah, watch out for another potential playoff run. I would not count them out by any stretch, but anyway, I'd be really excited to see like Celtics Knicks or Cavs Bucks or Celtics Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals, with Damon Giannis and Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown. Like I think that'd be peak basketball. And then Nuggets Clippers. I think that'd be really good. But NBA playoffs still a little bit of a ways away. But in any case, I don't know. We kind of talked about NHL a little bit last week. Do you want to skip to college basketball, or do you want to also
Yeah,
do like a similar thing here with
I mean,
hockey?
I feel like I already got my hockey talk in already. Overall, there wasn't too much of a change in the standings
Yeah, that's
aside from
true.
like the Boston Bruins being allergic to finishing game and the regular time. They've had
Oh, 2 game
they've had
losing
5 straight
streak.
overtime games, which has just been really
That's
annoying. But
nuts. Yeah.
I mean, like there hasn't been too much
Like
change in the
still.
standings.
Yeah.
Vancouver's still atop for now. The Rangers are right there. The Florida Panthers have taken a surge as usual.
Mm-hmm.
Colorado is still amongst the top, even though it doesn't really say so in the standings.
Right.
Kucherov and McKinnon are still battling for the Hart, and also likely the Art Ross Trophy. Although McDavid has, once again, he's starting to look like Connor McDavid. He's making a real contending race right now. So things should certainly be interesting right there. So yeah,
Right.
I already got my hockey talk in, so
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that pretty much covers it. I mean, I don't think we need to do a full like standings read, but I mean, I guess if we just want to look at playoff spots, like right now, Atlantic, you got the Bruins, Panthers, kind of, the Leafs, the Red Wings, Lightning have the wild cards right now. Metro, Rangers, Hurricanes, Flyers. It's gonna be interesting.
New Jersey needs to step it up if they want to get
Yeah,
back into the
that's what I'm
playoffs.
about to say. I mean, they have to catch Philly here for, or the one of the wild card teams. But I mean, there's an opportunity with the Flyers because I feel like they have a tough schedule coming up. But at the same time, the Devils kind of also, they have to step it up, and
At the
they're
same time,
they also have a tough schedule.
At the same time, Tortorella has taught his team to not give a damn about the toughness of a schedule and opponent. So I wouldn't exactly rely on a tough schedule to bail the Devils out for the
Yeah,
Flyers
no, they're gonna
spiraling
have
out
to
of
put in
control.
some work, but that win at MetLife did feel good. But yeah, Devils are gonna have to work on catching them. And then in the West, you got Stars, Jets, Avs, and then Canucks, Vegas Golden Knights. Looks like the Oilers tied with the Kings. Kind of doing the wild card calculations. Looks like probably one will go to the Kings right now. The other one will
And the
go to
other
the
go to the Predators.
Predators, and yeah, and then kind of Blues Wild are kind of looking in. Sort of the Flames, um, Kraken maybe, and then the rest are kind of like like kind of lottery teams there. So yeah, that's kind of how it looks. We kind of see who's we're kind of getting to that point where we kind of see who's a contender, who has a playoff spot pretty much on lock, who's kind of needs who probably has a wild card, who's still looking in, has a chance, and then you can kind of see the teams who've completely fallen off and they're kind of out of the race at this point. Yeah, but anyway, as a Devils fan, yeah, I mean they do need some work, but not quite over yet. They go to the West Coast. Hopefully some wins against like the Sharks and the Ducks or something like that. But we'll see what happens. It feels like they can't beat a good team. Like they beat the Canadians and then they lost to the
Hey,
Lightning and they lost to
listen,
the Rangers.
all that matters is you get into the dance. Then
Exactly. And once you make
anything
it to
can
the
happen.
dance,
Just get into the dance. That's all you got to do.
yeah, yeah. And speaking of the dance, when people refer to the dance, they usually refer to March Madness, and
Oh,
as I
really?
mentioned.
I thought the dance was always just referred to as like the playoffs or like.
Well, and yeah, that, but like like we're going dancing, like it's kind of like it's kind of the term,
I've never heard. Well, maybe it's because I don't follow college sports.
Yeah, like yeah, people do refer to that. I mean, I guess you probably other sports too, but like it's definitely much more of a March Madness thing. I don't know why they, yeah, like we're going dancing. Anyway, point is, yeah, that's what they refer to. Yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, about like an hour ago now. We haven't really talked about too much about March Madness because we started in May, kind of with NBA and NHL playoffs, and we've kind of taken this almost a full year, but we're kind of coming towards where we started again, with back towards the playoffs. But yeah, well, one event we kind of missed was, obviously, like we missed the start of the two playoffs, but we also missed March Madness, and I'm excited to start diving into that. Obviously, as a member of the radio station. We all follow Rutgers basketball and pretty much every other sport at Rutgers. But in general, I mean, I'm a huge college football guy. I absolutely love everything about the sport. I'm not as much into college basketball, but at the same time, it's a lot of fun, and I feel like there's a lot more parity. College football is kind of like you have your big dogs, and then those are the only teams who have a chance. And even those out of those teams, only like half of them have a chance. With the 14 playoff now expanding to 12, a lot of great changes. Basketball, you got the 64 team tournament, you got upsets, you got brackets, you've got wall to wall coverage of just games like on in the first weekend, and then you got it turns into kind of like more elite matchup later on.
The standard Duke choke.
Yeah, that happens like pretty much every year, and then you got kind of your Sweet
Yeah,
16, Elite Eight, Final
then
Four.
they almost won it
Always
on
fun.
accident. Yeah, then they almost won it on accident one year. It was like 2015 or something like that.
Did they? Yeah, a few years ago they were close, and then I think they lost to their arch rivals UNC, and then UNC lost to Kansas. So they made the Final Four a few years ago. It's kind of funny. I used to way before like the Rutgers stuff. Like, I was never really that big of a Rutgers fan because I was just like I never heard much about Rutgers because none of my friends like
I feel like
really
it's
talked
because
about it.
we're with the school. Like,
Yeah, exactly. It's like when you're in the school, like that's what you care about, and then if
I
you're not
mean,
really in it,
listen,
you're you know what I mean?
if you probably went to UConn, you'd probably be a UConn fan.
Oh yeah, no, it 100% depends on the school. But since Rutgers is also like State University of New Jersey, and we're like literally probably 20 minutes away, like it's easier. But it's just because the teams have been bad, like Rutgers football until very recently, they were like terrible. And the Rutgers basketball, same thing. But Rutgers, speaking of Rutgers basketball, just to I guess talk about it a little here. I mean, next year they're going to be so good because they're getting number 2 and 3 recruits and Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. This season was kind of a tough one, but they kind of found some life, and they got some players back, and one of those guys, Jeremiah Williams, who absolutely put the team on his back, and they won some games, and then but they went on a 4-game win streak. They beat a good Wisconsin team, then they lost 3 straight, and they kind of basically ruin any long shot of making the tournament this year is gone now, but at least it shows that they have life for next year. Yeah, so it's tough, but it feels like for Rutgers, it's like something always has to go wrong before it goes right. It's either they lose some game they shouldn't have in the beginning, and then they have to go on a run. They upset all these good teams, and they're the ranked Reapers, and then they barely make it, and then they lose in the first 4, or they start really good, and then they lose to who is it? Or then they lose some games they shouldn't have, like they lost to Minnesota, who was really bad. Then they didn't make the tournament last year. This year, they started slow. Well, they started all right, but they played easier teams in non-conference. Then they struggled against any like actually half decent team they played. And then then the conference play started. They really struggled. Then they kind of try to make a little run a little too late. But next year they're going to be really really good. So I'm excited for that. Big Ten's a gauntlet. Big Ten is definitely a gauntlet. But yeah, I mean, in terms of just basketball and the college tournament in general, March Madness is always a fun time. I feel like there's a lot more parity than college football, and I feel like the tournament's way better. I mean, as much as I love the college football playoff and New Year's Eve, watching that, that first weekend of March Madness is truly amazing because you got wall-to-wall coverage, you've got upsets, you got all these teams that you've probably never seen before, and then you got like one spectacular tournament, and it's great. But I mean, I guess just to take a look at it, while we do this, obviously you got Purdue from the Big Ten. They're kind of known for choking in March Madness every year, but this regular season they've done really well. They're 25-3, first in the conference. They've had a lot of weeks they've been the top team in the country. UConn, the defending champions, are I think even better this year. They have former Rutgers sharpshooter Cam Spencer on their team. They got a lot of other great players there. They brought back a lot of their core. They're also 25-3, so it's one of those two are probably going to be the top team in the bracket. So they're probably going to be the 1 seeds. And then in addition, Arizona, first in the Pac-12. That's a tough league. They're 21-6, and then Houston, another great team, 24-3, first in the Big 12 new conference. So they're rocking it. So I mean, those are probably your number ones, and then yeah, I mean I'm not going to read out every single team, but number 2s you're looking at North Carolina, who's always like a blue blood team. You're looking at Marquette, that's another good team in the Big East. Kansas, of course, I just mentioned they won the national championship a few years ago. They're one of the best teams in the Big 12 as well. it's a lot of those types of teams that you're familiar with. You think Kansas, you think Kentucky, Tennessee's pretty good. And then, yeah, I mean, looking at like 3 line, you got Creighton, you got Duke, you know. Yeah, way before the Rutgers thing, I was gonna say I used to be like kind of like a Duke fan because I saw a video of them doing the like a pep rally before the season where they introduce all the players and they, they're basically dancing to like, that song where it's like every time you touch, I get the feelings or something like that. Like I don't want to like
I
sing
think
them.
so, but you were
Every
hyped over a pep rally, really?
I don't know. It was cool because like how the song starts slow and they're like, and then it speeds up and then it's like, and every time we touch, I get this feeling. And then like
I don't know.
they were running around and high fiving the fans and it was like such an awesome
I,
atmosphere.
I don't
And I
know.
was like,
Pepper.
that's
I've
awesome.
never been entertained by those things.
Okay. Well, plus another thing I guess about Duke is they send like a lot of great players to the NBA, and they're always exciting, they're always good. So I was like, since I didn't
Except
really
for
have
Zion.
well, yeah, except for Zion, I guess. But who's Jason Tatum, Kyrie Irving, just to name a few. I mean, tons of NBA players go through there. When you think basketball, you probably think Duke, Kansas, UNC. I don't
Coach
know,
K.
Kentucky.
Well,
Yeah,
Coach K
exactly.
before he
Jason
retired, I
too.
would say.
UConn. You think of one of those some of those teams. So that's I don't know. I guess I like them. I still do, but obviously I'm a Rutgers fan now, and it'll be interesting because Duke's getting Cooper Flag, the #1 prospect in the class next year. Rutgers going to get 2 and 3, so maybe they end up playing each other. Like who knows? But maybe even in a non-conference game. But anyway, back to the seeds. Creighton. Another good team in there. Had a deep run last year. I think they were the team to knock out Princeton, Duke, Alabama, Iowa State, and then four seeds Baylor, San Diego State, who went to the national title game out of the Mountain West. And then Auburn, Illinois, that's another Big Ten school, probably their second best team in our conference. So, yeah, I mean, those are probably like your teams to look out for. And then, of course, you got bracket busters, the teams to, come out of nowhere. Last year we saw Florida Atlantic make a deep run all the way. They've been this season as an 8 seed, second in their conference. South Florida might be a team to watch out for, to either get an auto bid or possibly steal a bid. Yeah, I mean, Indiana State, so yeah, got to look out for these mid-major teams who can really like make, can do some damage. Yale in the Ivy League, that's a tough one. I think Princeton, they made a run all the way to Sweet 16. Indiana State this year, I think that's going to be an interesting mid-major team to watch out for. Yeah, so teams like that, and then of course you got teams like you only know because they make it to March Madness. Like Colgate, you probably never heard of that school, but they make March Madness because they always win their league. Like Vermont, I guess you probably know where that is, but same thing. Like they win their league, and it would be nice if one of these years those teams that are able to win a tournament game, but they might look good when they play like their mid-major schools, but the second they play a team like Duke or something, like it's kind of like it's a different ball game. So, it's tough sledding, but it's cool to see these teams like pop up and then I guess for your New Jersey fans, you got Seton Hall, who's a big rival of Rutgers in college basketball, and they're like very hated rivals. It's kind of like Rutgers Penn State in football, but like except for the two teams are much more like at each other's level, and it's not like one team dominates the other one. They're both like last year Seton Hall beat Rutgers here, and then Rutgers beat Seton Hall this year and at Prudential Center because they actually play a lot of their games at Prudential Center. And then Gonzaga, another team you might know just because of college basketball March Madness, they've actually had a little bit of a down year, so they're on the bubble. They might not make the tournament, or they might make it, as an at-large for the first time, which would be really, interesting if they don't win the tournament. But if they don't win the Pac-12, but they still, or the whatever their conference is, the West Coast Conference, but they still make it in because that's a team that everyone knows that they make a run. But St. Mary's, a team that is also in their conference that is even better this year, and another team that's also made the tournament last couple of seasons as well. So yeah, I mean that's kind of your bracketology update from me. It's not something I'm like really an expert in per se, but I do enjoy looking at them and trying to figure them out. Like we all try to do them, and then they all kind of end up, broken by like the first, probably by the first day, or maybe if you're lucky by the second day. But that's the fun of it, I guess. And it's a great tournament. Hopefully it works out for Rutgers next year. But we'll have to see. But I mean, I don't know. But in any case, it's a fun tournament. I'm excited. Conference tournaments coming up. College basketball is going to really take center stage. Over the next few weeks as we decide who's going to make it and who isn't, and then after that we get to see who makes a run to the Final Four. And the beautiful thing about this sport is it could be anybody. I mean, we've seen St. Peter's. FDU beat FDU beat Purdue. We've seen St. Peter's make a run to the Elite Eight. We've seen Princeton make it to Sweet 16. All three from New Jersey, by the way. So hopefully, Rutgers does get their chance sooner or later. But yeah, you never know. So that's March Madness for you, I guess. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. In any case, would like to end the episode, with that. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was a pretty productive episode. We talked a lot about different things, the NFL and the NBA and NHL and like all sorts of different sports. But, as always, it's been a really fun episode. I'm going to sign off now. For Jitesh Ramakrishnan here, and I'm Arnav Sarkar. So it's been another episode of Sports Vibe. I'll love to talk more about NBA and NHL and the rest of it next week. But until then, wish you all the best, and we will see you next time.